If you've ever been at work and thought to yourself, why am I not getting ahead? I am way more valuable than people think I am. Well, you're probably not communicating your value properly. So let's go over 3 ways that you should communicate value with numbers that are easy and everyone should know off the top of their head for future reference. I'm John, glad you're back. Let's jump right into it. So the very first number you need to know is the number of hours per year you're probably working. So technically, the number of hours per year from a corporate standpoint for a salaried employee or even an hourly employee typically is going to be 2,080 per year. That's 40 hours a week, 52 years, 2,080. But typically, you're going to have between 2 to 3 weeks of PTO and holidays every year. So let's just take 2 weeks off, use 2,000 hours of actual working time if you're trying to calculate things in the workforce. So, easy example of this is, let's say you're trying to figure out, hey, I spend a quarter of my time just doing menial, stupid tasks that could be automated away, or somebody else should do them for me because they're dumb and I'm too expensive for that. The way you think about this is, okay, quarter of my time out of 2,000 hours is 500 hours, right? Okay, step two, how much is that 500 hours worth to your employer? Well, at face value, let's talk about actual compensation. So let's say you make $20 an hour. Okay, you need to add 30% on top of that for benefits cost. That's like the standard that most HR departments use for calculating full actual cost of an employee. So $20 an hour, 30% on top of that, you make $26 an hour from the corporate standpoint. Okay, so now you've got 500 hours a year that you're working, $26 of cost for you per hour overall. What's that going to be? 13 grand a year. Okay, so now you know this stupid task that we should be getting rid of, or someone else should be doing because it's super simple. I mean, if you're making 20 bucks an hour, you're probably not going to hire someone to offset that 500 hours, but you get the idea. Um, that needs to get communicated to your boss. Hey, I could give you higher value tasks for this huge amount of time, and it costs me right now 13 grand a year for you. So I know a director level employee right now who is probably putting in 200 to 300 hours a year doing menial tasks, setting up like new user accounts and things like that with a system that honestly most people in the department could do. And I bet you he gets paid twice as much as most people in the department. So it's like, why is he doing that? He could offload that number. He should do this calculation. He should communicate that to his manager and say, hey, we should hire another person at the low level of this department to do these menial tasks. And he could probably come up with a few more examples than that. Anyway, so back to the list. So you've got your 2,000 hours a year of time worked. If you want to break down time according to what you've done. Second thing you got to understand is 30% on top of your base is your overall cost of you working. Now, if you do overtime or whatever, if you're hourly, that's a whole different thing, but you should be able to calculate that pretty easily. Okay. And the third number you have to understand is the cost of your inventory. So inventory is huge. Everyone works with inventory. If you're in sales, you're managing how much inventory is on hand between the time when you finish making it and when you sell it. If you're a distributor of something, you probably have inventory sitting on a shelf that you're trying to sell over time. If you're making any product, you're holding inventory to make the product. So understanding the cost of your inventory is huge. So inventory cost is as follows. One, interest cost. So your company very likely, not all companies, but very likely is borrowing money to pay for inventory, which they're going to sell and then pay back that ongoing loan. And they have a credit line they're working off of. So the interest on a credit line for a corporation might be anywhere from like 6.5 to 10%, depending on the corporation, how much they're taking out, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just use 10%. It's an easy number to work with. So if you have $1 million of inventory on hand, okay, cool. Every year that you're holding that inventory, it's costing you $100,000. Okay, so break that out by month. Basically, it's like, what is that, 8,000 something a month to hold $1 million of inventory, just an interest cost. So that's one aspect of inventory. The second aspect is storage cost. Now, if you have simple things like nuts and bolts, like a distributing company might have, okay, that's pretty cheap to store. But if you have big product that takes up a lot of space, like a food manufacturer that makes, let's say puffed corn or something like that, well, that's a huge deal because you might have like 150 pounds of it on an entire pallet, like a big 4x4 pallet stacked 3 feet tall. And that's not very much. So the cost of storing that becomes huge. Now, depending where you're at, Storage costs might change depending on your warehouse, outside housing, whatever it might be, but that's a number you could get very easily. Okay, so that's the second aspect of storing inventory in terms of cost. And the third aspect of inventory cost is handling and maintenance and movement. Okay, so if you have inventory that you're moving around a lot, so let's say your process is inefficient or whatever it might be, you're moving that inventory, let's say two, three, maybe four times before you actually use it. I've seen that happen at a few companies I've worked for. Well, every time you put that inventory in a truck, you're racking up more money. So the easy numbers for inventory on interest is just ask your finance person, ask your manager, ask whoever, say, hey, how much do we pay on interest for our expenses? Someone's going to have to give you that number. Okay. Usually a finance guy can tell you that off the top of their head. Do that calculation. The storage cost of a pallet. So let's go with pallet for now, but we could do really any inventory if you break it down to the right level. So typically they track pallet cost by month by pallet space. So if you went to a third party warehouse, said, can you store this for me? They're going to say, oh, this might be $12 per month per pallet, or it might be $25 per month per pallet, whatever it might be, depending where you're at. Get that number, and then how many pallets do I have of inventory? Typically, an analyst will have that number for you on hand, or if you're in operations, you might just know because you're working with the product coming off the line, whatever it might be. Okay. And then that last aspect of this is how much does it cost for us to transport and kind of handle all this inventory? So that becomes the overhead question. But realistically, you should probably just ask somebody, hey, how much overhead do we have per year? Okay. Overhead is a number that, again, finance should be able to have. They can give that to you, and you can say, okay, cool. How many units do we sell per year? Okay, let's say they say it's 1 million. Let's say your overhead is 10 million. Okay, cool. It's $10 per year of overhead per unit sold. Very simple, right? So these are calculations and numbers that you should be able to use to understand the value and cost of things around you. So when you go and communicate what you're doing, you can calculate, hey, if I could reduce my inventory, let's say I have $10 million of inventory on hand, I think we could reduce our inventory by $1 million this year. And your interest on your inventory is 10%. You just create $100,000 of value if you can pull that off, or if you already have pulled that off.